Did the Royals save their season in Chicago? I'll give you my thoughts next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into another edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That is at JOHNYJ_15. You also can catch us on wherever you listen to podcasts. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners wondering how this channel works, I bring you episodes Monday through Friday, 30-minute episodes in length, and we also have the Locked On Royals postcast, which is hosted by Chance Lebo, and he goes to you live for about 15 to 20 minutes at the conclusion of each and every Royals game. Now, before we get started, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is right around the corner, so visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. Well, you talk about a complete 180 for the Royals tonight in Chicago, because for about the first 8 innings of this one, or I should probably say the first 7 innings of this one, the Royals had absolutely nothing going. And if you thought, honestly, that this team was going to erase the 4-run deficit, even as bad as Chicago is this year, as bad as their bullpen has been, if you thought with the way the first 7 innings have gone, they were going to rally for 5 in the next 2 innings, I guess I'll just tip my cap to you, because that is a different level of loyalty and a different level of faith in this team. Because I'll even out myself here. I had very, very little confidence the Royals were going to find a way to rally off the bullpen. And just because of what we saw the night before, the way we had seen this game transpire through the first 7 innings, there wasn't much that you could turn to and say, man, just get to the White Sox bullpen. Just get to a bad arm out there. Because in reality, the White Sox had a rested bullpen. They had a 4-run cushion. And here the Royals are with 1 hit, a couple of base runners. They had been shut out for the first 16 innings of this series. And they find a way with their backs against the wall to rally. That's a different type of tenacity, truthfully. And to be able to rally after really coming up a little bit short in the 8th inning. I mean, you had Bobby Witt Jr. up representing the go-ahead run, and he strikes out. That could have been the nail in the coffin. But Vinny Pasquantino leads off the 9th with a single. Then Salvador Perez strikes out. Mike Yastrzemski singles. And you get a great AB from Jonathan India. He spits on a couple of pitches and then ropes a single to center. You got the bases juiced. And we'll talk about Michael Massey in the second segment. But to come through against a tough lefty in that spot and for Kyle Isbell to do the same, then Carlos Estevez to slam the door, that is a gutsy win for a baseball team that is trying to stay alive in the wild card race. Because a loss tonight, let's all be honest here, a loss tonight wouldn't have ended their season because there are still 30 games to go. But how are you going to convince people watching after dropping the first 2 games to a team that has less than 50 wins that you are still able to compete for a playoff spot? Because even with this win, it doesn't guarantee the Royals are going to get into the postseason, but a loss tonight, I think, would have done a lot of damage to the wild card picture. Now, San Diego and Seattle are still playing, but if Seattle wins tonight, and if the Royals would have lost, they would be 5 games back of a wild card spot. And if they win tonight, the Royals will be 4 games back, but if they lose, they'll be 3 games back again. And they could be as good as 2 games back with a win tomorrow. And as we always like to say in baseball, your momentum or you are only as good as your next day's starting pitcher. And that's Ryan Bergert for the Royals. We'll talk about him in the third and final segment. I really do feel, though, that a win like this has eluded the Royals all season long. I mean, you go back to last year, how many times did the Royals have this come from behind win, this gutsy, intense victory on the road? They had an abundance of them. I mean, it felt that every other series, they had some incredible comeback and they would find a way to win it. And this year, they just hadn't had it. And I could probably pick a few games where they were able to come through and they held on at the very end or they had a walk-off victory. Sure, those had happened. Tonight, to me, was the first time that I had seen this team really rally when all hope was lost. I mean, you're down to your final 6 outs, and this offense just finds a way to keep it going, keep the line moving, and get it to the next guy. And even the bottom of your order were the guys to come through. I thought the moment that changed the game for me, because it set up Michael Garcia in the 8th inning, was Kyle Isbell drawing the walk. If Kyle Isbell doesn't spit on that pitch that is just a few inches outside, the Royals don't win this game. If he becomes the final out of the 8th inning, they're not coming back down 4-0 down to their final 3 outs. I'm not going to play those odds. But the fact it got to Michael Garcia, and Garcia was able to have a first pitch, 2-run single to right field, that made it possible in the 9th inning. And instead of chasing 4, you're chasing 2. All you need is a base runner, a bloop in the blast, as they say. And for Vinny Pasquantino, down to 2 strikes, he just guides one into right center field. I promise we will talk about him and what kind of tear that he's been on in tomorrow's episode. I'm going to try to get that out before the series finale tomorrow. But he has a great at-bat. Salvador Perez does not. Mike Yastrzemski does. Jonathan India does. And Michael Massey does. You have just a group of guys that are not always counted on to come through that came through. And that can be a game that catapults you. That can be the game that you look back on and say, our season was on the ropes. And I'm sure a couple of you will be commenting that tonight, because I certainly feel that way. You lose tonight, you have now lost the series against the White Sox. You are trying to avoid a sweep tomorrow, and then you have the off day. But the fact that you won in dramatic fashion, you can go in tomorrow, leave town with a series win, and go enjoy your off day before coming back for a 9-game homestand. That's pretty good when you think about it. But if you lost tonight, I just don't know how even tomorrow's game feels that good. You know, I was thinking about what I was going to put out there on Twitter when this game was going to come to a close. And I was thinking both sides of this. You know, if they rally, I've got an idea of what I want to talk about. If they don't, I have a pretty good idea of what I want to talk about. And for the first 7 innings of this game, I was leaning toward we're going to be talking about this team and really what's ahead for them. And I thought about saying, man, you could go out tomorrow and win 19-0. And are you really feeling that different about this team and about this series in general? Because I wouldn't be. If you went out there and blew the doors off the White Sox in the series finale to avoid the sweep, good for you. You can enjoy the off day. And sure, you might be 4 games back or 5 games back or whatever it would have been. But you just don't feel good at all, leaving Detroit and Chicago at 2-4, not this late into the season. And I think this team knew that. This team knew that you lose this game and you score 1 run or you score no runs for the 2nd straight night. How are you going to pick yourself up off the mat and convince maybe yourself that you are able to get this done? That's always the part about sports for me, that at the end of the day, these guys do think as a normal human being would. You've got your outliers that can really block out everything. You know, they are this tough competitor that it doesn't matter whether they win or lose. They're able to flush it rather quickly and they're able to move on. It doesn't matter how great that win is or how bad that loss is. But you've got 26 guys out there. All of them likely think a little bit differently. You lose tonight, I would have to imagine some people on that team are going, man, you know, tomorrow doesn't even sound that enticing. Tomorrow's game doesn't have that same feel as it does now. The feel of tomorrow is, man, go out there and bludgeon the White Sox for the final time this year. Beat them to a pulp and make them regret blowing that 4-run lead on Tuesday night. Because if you leave town with a series win, you're 4 games over 500. You can rest up. You can rest up that bullpen, rest up the lineup, rest up the rotation, and get ready for the team that's leading your division. Monumental win tonight, and some could call that a season saver. Not that it guarantees a playoff spot for the Royals, but it certainly makes you hold off for another day, maybe another couple of days, that the season is not over. Maybe you aren't going that far. Maybe you're staying level-headed, or maybe you're still really optimistic about this team. But regardless of all of that, tonight, monumental victory for the Kansas City Royals. We'll take our first break of the show. When we come back, I do want to give my flowers to Michael Massey because he came through really for the first time this season. And he's had such a rough go of it. And to see him come through tonight, it's got to make you feel pretty good for him. We'll talk about that at bat next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can catch us on wherever you listen to your podcast. Before we go any further, I want to tell you about the title sponsor tonight in FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Tonight in the 9th inning, you had a couple of bats that really changed the outcome of this 5-4 victory for the Royals. And we could go down the line here and say this at-bat was the most important, this at-bat was, and I would actually be very curious to know what a couple of the listeners tonight are thinking. Did you feel that Vinny Pasquantino's at-bat in the 9th was the best? Mike Yastrzemski, Jonathan India, Michael Massey, Kyle Isbell. You could make a case for each and every one of them. But for Michael Massey in that spot to come through, just great for him. He was one of the guys I talked to in spring training, and he's coming off of a career year. He was a postseason hero for the Royals, and I thought going into the year, he was my guy to break out. And I'll admit, I was wrong on it. And one hit doesn't change what his season has been. Well, let's get that out of the way. I'm not saying that 1-2-run single in the ninth inning against the White Sox has made me feel differently about Michael Massey's season. But going back to the takeaway that we had from tonight's game, which was, these are human beings, after all, that think the way, at times, a normal human being would. If you're not playing well, you might be down on yourself. You're not having the same confidence that you would if you were winning 6, 7, 8 games in a row. That all is still a true thing. Just because you're a professional athlete and playing at the highest level doesn't mean you don't feel the same way a college player might or a high school player might. You can curb it maybe a little bit better because you're playing 162 of these. But to go through a slump, I would say that there are few guys in baseball that can just not worry about it and a few days later get out of it and be hitting 300 again. Not everybody in baseball has that power, has that capability, has that talent. And for Michael Massey, it's been such a rough go for him. The numbers have not been there. The injuries have been. So he's dealt with poor numbers. He's dealt with injuries. He's moved around defensively a little bit. We've seen him at second base. We've seen him in left field. It got to the point where Royals fans said, we don't need to see him in the lineup anymore. And this is a guy that was a postseason hero for the 2024 Royals just a year ago. So that is a pretty drastic fall for a guy that I feel a lot of us had pretty big expectations for. I thought that this could be a nice 5-6 hole hitter for the Royals, play some really good defense at second base, and he could be a league average bat. That hasn't happened. And my prediction was way off. And it was far worse than I thought it could have been. But this goes back to that human part. Because Michael Massey, for so much of this season, has been waiting for a moment like this. And how often have we seen some of these guys that have struggled come up to the plate in a spot similar to this? Man, you just need something to happen. You just need a ball to fall. It can be a pop-up that is not communicated well in the outfield, and it drops for a hit. Or it's an error, right? You rip one to second base, and it glances off the heel, and you've got 2 runs right there. He would have taken anything in that moment. And he's facing a tough lefty. And I thought about this moment tonight and compared it to a moment we saw at the end of June, which was the Dodgers in town and Jack Caglione's at the plate. It's a 1-run game, if I'm not mistaken, and there's 1 out. And all Jack Caglione has to do is get a ball in the air. And he had struggled, and he had known that he had struggled. He could look up at the scoreboard and see a 140-something average. He had seen all of that. He knew there was pressure in that spot. And it's a Friday night game. You're wearing the City Connect uniforms. It's sold out. It's loud. The Dodgers are in town. And what does he do? First pitch, ground ball to second, tailor-made double play, and the game's over. And I'm sitting there watching the game, and I go, that's just a gut punch for a young hitter that so desperately needed something to fall. And I really feel that if Jack Caglione comes through in that spot, if he rips one to the wall and the Royals walk it off against the Dodgers, we're talking about a different season for him than he's had. We're probably talking about a guy that was able to ride the high of it and come through more times than just that moment. Now, let me be clear. You can go back to my episode last night. And I said, well, what will Michael Massey do for this team? Not much. I don't have a ton of hope that Michael Massey is going to be that missing piece for the Royals lineup. And really, there doesn't need to be a missing piece with this lineup. They've been really good in the second half. They've been really good since the All-Star break. But to be somebody that might be able to give you better production than John Rave or Jack Caglione, the bar is incredibly low right there. You just pull up the batting averages, you pull up the on-base percentage, the slugging, all of that. I mean, Michael Massey does not have a high bar to clear. But I will say that tonight he proved me wrong. And I'm glad he proved me wrong. Because in that spot, man, striking out or a double play ball, what are we talking about tonight on the episode? What are we seeing on Twitter tonight if Michael Massey grounds into a double play or he pops up on the infield? Or even if he lines out, he just doesn't come through. We're talking about a much different story. And that's cool for a guy that had to have felt the weight of the world in that spot, come through and off the bat, know that ball is going to drop. And to be on first base, to hear the dugout yelling, to be able to give Damon Hollins a fist bump, that's great to see. Because that's always the stuff that we maybe fail to see with struggling players. You think John Rave wanted to do that in the last couple of days that he was here? You think Nick Lofton wants to do that? You think that Jack Caglione wants to see a ball fall like that in a big moment? They all do. Every hitter does. Because you can feel that pressure mounting every time you come to the plate and you don't come through. Think about a pitcher on the mound. Somebody that just can't get it done. Sam Long's one of them. Sam Long back in April. How many times do you think he thought to himself, can I just get 3 hard hit outs, a clean inning, 1, 2, 3, and not just allow all this soft contact that gives up 3 or 4 runs in 1 inning? That's the human part of this game. And tonight, we saw somebody that has just been beaten down by this season come through in a massive moment. And as we talked about in the first segment, might have saved the Royals season. We'll take our final break of the show. When we come back, let's talk about tomorrow's game. Michael Lorenzen really looked good tonight until he just didn't. Can Ryan Bergert do what many Royals starters have not in the last week, which is give the bullpen a rest into an off day? We'll talk about that next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can catch us on wherever you listen to your podcast. Few things I want to talk about before we move on to our final segment. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you, and we've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey, and you can also find the link in the show notes. And thank you, as always, for helping us out. Also want to tell you about 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. The grape, ginger, and lime-flavored shots bring the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for singing birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. Golf is all about the good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, and lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. Now you can ramp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the U.S. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament, and it ends this Halloween, October 31st, 2025. As we brought up earlier in tonight's episode, you're really only as good as your next day's starter. We would like to sit here and say, well, because of this momentum, a emotional and game-changing, or really, I should say, a season-changing win should just bleed into the next day, right? What happened tonight should just carry over in tomorrow. The White Sox will be dejected, and the Royals will be uplifted, and they'll find a way to dominate them in the series finale. That sounds perfect, and I'm hopeful that that can happen. But I also don't know that's going to happen. In the same way, I didn't expect the comeback tonight. I don't know if we go into tomorrow, Aaron Savale's on his game and Ryan Bergert's not. But more importantly than maybe talking about how the Royals can dominate this game, how the offense can take the rhythm from the 8th and the 9th and just carry it into the first and second inning tomorrow, what's so vitally important about tomorrow's game and going into a pivotal 3-game series with Detroit over the weekend, you want to be able to win this one. I mean, bar none. Just win this game. If you have to win it 11-10, so be it. Because a series win on the road is always going to be important. And leaving town and strolling into your off day 4 games over 500 has to feel great. And at best, you could be 2 games back of a playoff spot going into a 9-game homestand. But if Ryan Bergert, who has worked 5 2/3 every single start since joining the Royals, it's almost crazy to think about. No, I might be off on one start, but it would be only one start. He has pretty much gone 5 2/3 every single time out since joining the Royals. And he's allowed 2 runs or less in all of those starts. I mean, really, really efficient. And what I do like about tomorrow is that the White Sox have only seen him once. He pitched against them back in that series in Kansas City. For the most part, he was pretty efficient. He struck out 8, I want to say, but did give up 2 runs in that 5 1/3 or 5 2/3 innings. But tomorrow, he's going to have that tough test of going out there and pitching against a similar lineup. A lot of the same guys he just saw, and the one that he got burned by the most was Lenyn Sosa, who should be in the lineup tomorrow. But I'm more so excited about the young pitcher having to, be challenged with that. Have to learn and have to mold himself into being a different pitcher. Maybe work backwards this time. Maybe attack certain hitters differently. That's what I'm excited for from a baseball standpoint, how a rookie pitcher who just saw this team is going to attack hitters differently in the next go-around. We saw it with Noah Cameron when he faced St. Louis one weekend and then saw him the next week after that. And he was great in both of those outings. But Bergert's got that going for him. He was effective against the White Sox, and I'm sure they're not thrilled in having to see him again. Aaron Savale was somebody I feel the Royals kind of let squeak by. I mean, the Royals should have been able to put up a lot more runs than they did against Aaron Savale when he pitched against them on a Friday in Kansas City a few weeks back. But that is the matchup they're going to be going with tomorrow. And if Ryan Bergert can go 6 tomorrow, man, if they can get him to go 6 and they've got a comfortable cushion and they can turn things over to, Taylor Clark or John Schreiber again, go to Lucas Ursig and Carlos Estevez, and then you have that off day, or maybe even better yet, maybe that's even, too much to ask for. What if the offense gives you 7 or 8 to work with and Ryan Bergert can go 6 for the first time in his career, and then you hand it over to Jonathan Bolin and Sam Long or maybe Daniel Lynch for the final 3 innings. And you can give that bullpen, your high leverage guys, 2 days of rest. Because that, to me, has been such a grind over the last week. Even in that Rangers series, they were scratching and clawing to get all 27 outs. And they were relying on that offense to do the heavy lifting. Tomorrow, I would love to see the pitching pick up the offense. Now, Michael Lorenzen, he absolutely did that through 5 innings. And even though he gave up a couple of runs before he departed it, and some of them were, inherited by John Schreiber, but Michael Lorenzen did his job. I mean, he got 1 hit of support. No runs in total, but 1 hit of support in the first 5 innings. His stuff was moving. He looked good. I got no issues with the way that Michael Lorenzen threw tonight. But if Ryan Bergert can save a couple of guys in the bullpen, and then you fly back home, happy flight, and these bullpen guys can rest up, think about how you can attack Detroit differently than you had to at Comerica Park over the last weekend, where you're having to piece together, and piece together the final couple of innings and hold on to these 1 to 2 run leads. I mean, this bullpen has had its fair share of injuries, but some of these guys are having to pitch night in and night out, and you're having to leave Sam Long in for an extended period of time. You're having to go to Angel Serpa back-to-back-to-back days. You're having to go to John Schreiber back-to-back-to-back days. Ursig 2 days in a row. Estevez 3 days in a row. You don't want to have that, and early on in the year, you didn't. You had many guys that were able to do their job in the rotation, and they're just going through a lull right now. They've been going through a lull for quite some time, but Ryan Bergert's got that opportunity tomorrow night to go out there, take the ball, pitch very well. Hopefully the offense can give him some cushion, give him something to work with, and this bullpen can get 2 days off. Because I feel a heck of a lot differently about that series in Detroit if Ryan Bergert does his job, gives them a quality start tomorrow, the Royals offense shows up, and the bullpen can take a day of rest and take a complete off day tomorrow or the next day after that before taking on the Tigers over the weekend, a 3-game series that begins on Friday. Well, that'll do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals one of your listens today. For your second, find the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night, where you have every game every night until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we're going to get an episode up before the game tomorrow. So we'll talk a little bit about Vinny Pasquantino. I want to talk a little bit more about what we have seen at the minor league level from a couple of guys that maybe we could see in September, and maybe take a peek at that series against Detroit. But until tomorrow, you take it easy, Kansas City.